I have $1 million idea. What do I do with it?
So if you have an idea and you want something to happen, first thing is,
Really?
and the second thing,
Gotcha.
and last,
Oh. How do you dig deeper into that idea?
who's the person that can support you? Who can hold you accountable?
Which I think is a really big deal because a lot of times we skip over that.
Ideas are a dime a dozen, but how to implement those ideas, that's a completely different thing.
Everyone has what they believe to be $1 million idea in their head, but
Or more.
or more, but it rarely turns into that $1 million. What's up?
The thing is, there's a way to turn potential into production. There's 6 very specific steps. And if people especially can figure out number 2 and address it, that's where this really takes off. But after that, those next 4 pieces will lead them to be able to cultivate it and be able to realize that potential as something that adds value in the world. And it is extraordinarily fulfilling. It actually is quite a bit of fun. But that second step is the sticking point. If you can get past it, and if you're brave enough to really do the first thing, well, if you're committed to it, you'll get there.
Well, I guess the question is are they actually $1 million ideas? Because I feel like a lot of times we have ideas that we think are amazing, but may not actually be.
Dollars follow value, not effort. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
So what is value? Well, value is perspective. That's why brand matters, right? Because if people trust a brand, that's they're more likely to see that as valuable.
Yeah.
Perspective is individual. One person can value something and the other person doesn't value something.
Yeah.
Right? They're it's preference.
Mm-hmm.
So value is perspective and preference. And so if we're looking at, someone might feel like it's $1 million idea because they're excited about the idea, but you got to ask, does the marketplace value the idea? And who in the marketplace would value that idea, and how would they actually engage or participate in that idea, improving their life? Sometimes, value is, it's just entertainment, right? People just want to be entertained.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it could be therapy, though. It's a lot more deep that way. Or maybe what it is they're buying some good, right? Like it's food, it's clothes, it's shelter. But even then, people have different preferences on which house that they like, or which clothes they like to buy, or which car they might drive. And so again, we have to go back to the value is perspective in that individual. And so if you can't put it in a place where it's easy to transact, this is where Amazon kind of changed the world with this one click, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just one click buy. They trained that some people don't even want to go fill out forms on other websites now. And even if they don't like Amazon and their predatory practices, they're like, but this one click is just so convenient.
It is, yeah.
Because part of the value is even, going in an Apple store, when they bring the register to you, it was how do we make transactions more seamless and, make it easier on the customer? That's part of the value process too.
Yeah.
Is the entire experience. And so if you don't have a place where people can easily transact with you, you might have a brilliant idea, or if you have nobody else that really knows about the idea and it's not marketing well, the thing is, some of the mediocre ideas that people have made billions of dollars on was because they marketed it well, they had the right infrastructure, they had the right support system. So it's this entire kind of supply chain that matters in that process.
Yeah. You have an idea. How do you dig deeper into that idea to either evaluate it or bring it to life? What's that process?
So if you have an idea and you want something to happen, the first thing is I recommend is you declare it.
Okay.
Here's an example. I want to do a triathlon. I'm afraid of swimming, but as soon as I declared it on my radio show, there's the accountability because people are asking me about it.
Yeah.
Want to get my book, to New York Times. So I declared it in front of 85 people. And all of a sudden, people start asking if they could support or what they could do to help. It's I've got some accountability. When you declare something, the second thing is, and maybe this can come first, is you can test the idea too.
Okay.
Are people willing to pay for it? Right?
How would someone test it?
Look at how many people have done this with crowdsourcing.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Right? So they'll simply put it up on Indiegogo or Kickstarter or something like that, and then people start to fund it because maybe it's a movie they want a producer credit, or maybe it's a product and they want, they just want to support that product to come out. And you see some raise more money than they're asking for, and others don't. So that's one of the things you could do is test. So declare is you let it known. The third thing is I really like to get into some type of co-creation. You know, who's the person that can support you? Who can hold you accountable? Who can inspire you? Who can help move this into action?
Yeah. And that's not necessarily partnership. That's co-creation.
No, it could be, if I'm writing a book, it could be an editor. If I'm, deciding to do comedy, it could be another comedian that I can bounce, have as a
Ideas
sounding
off,
board
yeah.
and have ideas. Like, it's just someone, it's one other person that is going to help you move it along. You want someone that you can trust. You want someone that high integrity and they'll get things done, or someone that's willing to call you out.
Yeah.
Someone's willing that
accountability.
to say, hey, why did you say you're going to do this and you didn't do it? You don't want someone that's just going to say, don't worry about it. I think the other piece is you just got to get rid of escapism, because a lot of people, when they raise the stakes, when they have a new idea, when something excites them, they go, well, who am I to do this? And then if they think that, they may like, well, I got to clean the garage first. This is silly, right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, but I've got this, you know what? I can't do this until I have this conversation with so-and-so, or I've got to have the money first, or I'm in the middle of this Netflix series I got to get through first. I mean, dude, as much as that sounds insane, that's how the brain works, right? There's this escapisms that people go to when they don't want to deal with a new reality, when they don't want to deal with that higher level of challenge. And it could be anything from, maybe it's just the person you always complain about, and then you go back to complaining about them versus get into action towards this. Maybe it's, you get addicted to the gym and you just like, I'm training for this thing and I got to do more time in the gym in order to have the perfect body. Like it's that like insane sometimes. As time goes on, you're also going to have to find the time and space, right? Because if it's a new idea, what are you going to remove? So that's where you got to get really good at delegation.
Oh, gotcha.
And I'm always about delegating a role. Like, how do you delegate a role to someone so it removes the micromanagement, gets it off your plate, and then you ultimately are going to want to collaborate. If you have a big enough idea, that's that whole supply chain I'm talking about. You're going to have to collaborate. Like, I'm collaborating with you here because if it wasn't for you, this, what I'm writing wouldn't be up on the screen, or this format wouldn't exist, or the questions you're asking off screen, or their entire production team coming up with ideas. So collaboration is a big part of it. And so I think that a lot of people, they actually have $1 million hiding from them. And I think a lot of that $1 million that's hiding is through IP. One of the best asset classes that's underutilized and under-leveraged, yet the people that do well with it absolutely crush, and they build a totally different life and business. Like, they can simply go from a B2C type of business. Maybe you're a service professional, you're a doctor, but then you can train other doctors on how you built your practice. Then all of a sudden you're going to B2B, right? And that's your processes are IP. Your conversations and your scripts and your office procedures and how you leverage the technology and the packages that you sell. There's like so many things that could be trained, taught, and educated in that way. I feel like there's a lot of people that have built systems that are really successful, but they keep them to themselves. If we look at what would the Rockefellers do as an example, right? That book came about because I was really writing it to generate leads for my co-author. And it was just going to be a book on insurance. But as I started writing, all of a sudden it was a book about legacy. I was like, wait, that was much more exciting. It was much more engaging, not only for me, but for the audience. And so, we even wrote a second version because I was like, oh, I want to have the legacy rings in here. I want to talk about family constitutions and family retreats and how you invest in heirs. And it became so much more exciting. And then it also became a much bigger book because of that. And then what we found was we could provide a ton of leads with this book. And, they would schedule and specifically talk about setting up their trust properly or how to design their insurance properly. And so I decided, I want to license this, right? I want to license this to other people that align with our values. That's a multi-million-dollar idea because, one, I had already done this, right? I had Matt and Jex, who are brilliant at the marketing side. They're selling the book and they've sold hundreds of thousands of copies, right? And initially when we sold it, there wasn't like links in the book pointing to anything, but then we put 2 different QR codes inside of the book. Those QR codes led to a download of a legacy course and also to setting up an appointment, Right. And so I was like, man, this isn't a book. This is an entire legacy process. This is a legacy builder's kit. And so I was like, I could license this to other financial people because I've already built the brand. We've already got the content in there. They could write a forward for the book, and then the QR codes can point to their website because we know that it works. And so that's an example of $1 million more, just hiding in plain sight because I had to go through an abundance type of shift. Not that I really had to make this big shift, but I was like, hey, if this really works and that 90% of people or more design insurance improperly, I start to see this problem and I'm like, I can't solve this by myself. How can I help other people so that we can take this underserved market and we could take this misinformation and point it out and we can create an easy and elegant solution? Then all of a sudden, that's IP.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have IP, but they hold it too close to the chest. They don't share it enough. And you can, instead of thinking about in scarcity, holding on to what you got so nobody takes your idea, actually benefiting your entire industry with the idea, and all ships rise with the tide.
You are helping other insurance salespeople make money. And so then you make money, right? It's a mutually beneficial endeavor.
Man, I sold life insurance from like 98 to like 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And I even had a license after that, but I never sat down and sold it. But I was basically wanted people to have life insurance. I just didn't want to be the one sitting down. And so we ended up, building a firm that generated a ton of leads around that. I was making money per lead. And I look at these guys making a ton of cash from our leads. And I wasn't making quite as much because I wasn't willing to do the one-on-one. And so that's why I was like, hey, rather than get paid $1 for a book, what if I could make it even more custom to the person so that they could be positioned properly with my brand? They could have the entire referral systems, articles, funnels. It's like, it was just a way for us to win together. Because for them, it might be one client that pays for their system for the year.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm getting paid on content I've already created. It's efficient for both parties. Mm-hmm. I like that industry. I like speaking at those events. I like connecting with those people. And so, a lot of where there's a lot of money just sitting around is intellectual property.
What are some different types of intellectual property?
SOPs, like systems and processes.
Okay.
Right.
So I've done this really successfully as a framer or a roofer or, accountant or something like that. I'm selling that process.
Yeah. There's patents. There's books. There's courses, right? There's videos and social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's AI tools now.
Yeah.
We have like Ask Garrett Gunderson for our multiplier community, and it's pretty awesome how it responds. So there's so much intellectual property, and some of it could be helping you on the sales side because all of a sudden you have a one-to-many tool, right? Because we can look at like evergreen webinars even as an example. We can look at podcasts. This is all IP. And maybe it helps with marketing. It helps with brand awareness. But it can even help with just customer service. Because just because someone does a financial transaction doesn't mean that they 100% understand it 2 years down the road, or what the bigger picture of the plan is, or that, other things and competing ideas come up, and how do you prepare the individual to know what to do? Like, I think that unfortunately too many people are reliant on their financial people, not empowered by.
Oh, interesting.
Right. And so if you look at intellectual property of like, hey, we're here to help you, even if it's not required. Like, what would it look like to be advisor independent? Like, you use them because it's helpful. You utilize them. You don't rely on them.
Yeah.
And that distinction between utilization and reliance is the difference between accountability and responsibility and prosperity and freedom and, bondage. Yeah. So it's a pretty big deal. With IP, I could put my best foot forward because I could, be on my very best on that audio book that maybe on a day I didn't sleep, I wouldn't be my best, but I could be having that production happen while I'm gone, while I'm on vacation, while I'm hanging out with my family. Like, it gives people a way to digest and utilize at their own pace. So it's an awesome tool for positioning, right? It's an awesome tool for efficiency.
Does a person need to be like well known or famous for the thing that they are trying to produce an IP on?
I had 6,000 people in my database when I launched Killing Sacred Cows. I wasn't well known or famous.
Yeah.
Most of my clients were in Utah, Wyoming, Nevada, a little bit in California. You know, I wasn't like national yet. But if you have a good message, that matters. If you really invest in this so that it's of true value to people, like it could be a game changer.
Yeah.
You know, there's some people that are already really wealthy, like Justin Donald, and then he comes out with a book and then he shares all of this that helped him get where he got. And then he becomes even wealthier. Yeah. And he has all these great relationships and builds a really cool community. And so like, that's really great.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. There's many people who make more money from the courses about them making money than what they actually did.
Yeah, there's people who get really annoyed by that.
Yeah,
you know, like sometimes people hate, let me guess, you're trying to sell a book. I'm like, oh my God, can you believe I'm trying to sell something for $10, $20? I mean, I don't know what it is. I get that people are worried about fake gurus. They've never done it before, all that kind of stuff. Understood. But when you do have something to offer, when you do have something to contribute, it's like, I think of part of the reason we have so much wealth in the world is because we get to build upon previous generations. So when someone created a blueprint for the first time, right, for a home, well, then other people could improve that blueprint. Yeah. And we weren't starting at zero every time and someone died. We had captured that information. Yeah. So our access to information now has created exponential wealth. You know, think about how much wealthier we are today than 100 years ago. Yeah. Like we just had a family reunion and my mother-in-law was speaking about 100 years ago. And it's like, dude, that's crazy. People's kids are dying because of, we don't have the healthcare that we have today. They're living without refrigeration. It's like, you're like, what? And
even like your life expectancy.
Right. The life expectancy. So what happens is we could just continue to compound because we get to build each foundation and learn more from each other. And that information becomes more available, accessible at the more efficient, effective way to do things. And so what that's doing is creating wealth, and intellectual property is one of the key ways that we do that. Yeah. Is that we share those ideas so that people don't have to start from scratch. Now, I also think there's a real value of, we have that, people just keep growing based upon the previous generation. We learn from them, right? And we take a step up. But Weston, there's a certain point where it's very helpful to have an outside perspective, where it's like, is this really the best way? And that's like when I wrote Killing Sacred Cows, my entire premise is, what do we believe that we think is true that's holding us back?
Gotcha.
And why do we believe that? How did it get indoctrinated? And it's effective to a certain degree. And, stories that I didn't put in the book, but I had read about that were interesting. I'm sure you heard the one where the girl cuts the ends off the ham and then puts it in the oven.
Oh, yeah.
And why do you cut it off? We're like, well, that's what grandma did.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, grandma did it because the ovens were smaller. But now they're just cutting it off because it's tradition. Or the elephant that gets, tied up by chains, and they get rid of the chains and just put a string, and they don't break the string because they were trained that way. Or you put a lid on something and the gnats hit the top of the lid and then you take it off and they never jump higher than where the lid was. That's what happens also, is we get indoctrinated in this sometimes. And that outside perspective could be extraordinarily helpful.
And you're saying that's a different type of IP
That's a different type of IP. It's like, I'm now looking at what is it people complain about most in finance, and how do we solve that with AI?
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
Inside the box would be, hey, you work for a company, you get as many referrals as you can for your own personal calendar. And then, everything changed for me where I was like, what would it take to fill up 5 people's calendars? That was a different question. It was outside the box of what I was being taught.
Yeah.
I thought outside the box of hey, what you do is, in insurance, you buy a second to die to handle the estate tax. But then I was learning outside the box, well, wait, but what if they could just make more money outside of the insurance policy? They pay more tax, but they still leave more behind because they grew the estate more, or they got so it's just all of these kind of things are, sometimes it's outside the box. It's the most disruptive. There's some things that in the box is great, but outside the box might be completely a shift. And a lot of people are afraid of that shift. And intellectual property can help us go along and learn about that shift because we have to retrain our brains or get perspective or hear where people are coming from. I like reading books that help me have a different worldview, that help me have a different paradigm shift, that help me to see things in a different way. And, really what I'm looking at in the world of finance is where can we be out the box, like with X1 Wealth, that help people to be empowered because now they have the AI tools that if they talk to a financial advisor, they're asking better questions. They've got insight of what's really going on. They can see where they might be overpaying tax. And so if the person says, yeah, well, you can't really do that. Actually, you can. They just didn't learn about it because it's going to create a higher standard for the industry. I'm even thinking like, how do I train people and teach people in a one-to-many fashion with intellectual property that helps them to become a better financial steward instead of like, just when I started in this business, you meet with people one-on-one. There's only so many one-on-one slots that you could do. And then when you do the annual reviews, sometimes you can't really go that deep. That's why we started to do workshops, and workshops let them talk with other people, and it let us get deeper with the content. And then we started to create, daily producer perspective emails. And then we started sending out a monthly newsletter. It's like, what can we do to create the lifelines that help people get where they want to go? That's the outside the box, because you start looking at the problems and the constraint and say, what's the solution? Gotcha. Don't look at what everybody's always done. Even look at a different industry. Yeah. Think in a completely different format, not in the way that your brain's trained to think in that box. And then if you get outside of that box and you can help people, books or other IP might be the way to bring them along, help them understand, help them be part of that process.
So let's break down real quick path that you had lined out. We first started with declare. What are some tips for declaration, or what's the purpose for it?
I'm going to be a New York Times bestseller. That was a declaration that I made, one of the first ones. And guess what? People rallied around that.
Yeah.
Like, are you serious? I'm like, yes. It's like, well, let me find someone.
Yeah.
That declaration it makes it real. I'm going to do a triathlon. Oh, now I've declared it. It creates accountability. It allows other people to bring their resources. It allows other people to say, hey, have you watched this? Have you heard that? Have you considered this? Or, hey, do you need a partner to train with? Declaration lets it be known.
So what's the difference between what you did versus someone being like, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire?
Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to be a millionaire. Like, it's not very specific.
Gotcha. Okay. So getting
the more specific it is, the more valuable it becomes.
Gotcha. Because then people can attach themselves to it.
I remember being like, I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. Mm-hmm. Well, I got there a lot more than that, but I also, I got there before 30, but I was by 30 no longer a millionaire, So get and stay might have been, but it's like, I think more like if you can declare in value creation.
Gotcha.
Not just in outcomes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sure, I'm saying New York Times, but that's just more specific than, but it's more than anything. I was like, I want people to read this book and have a real movement and impact.
Well, yeah, because what it implies is New York Times is that you have a number of copies sold.
Right. There's some ego in that for sure. Because I want to be like, I hit New York Times. No doubt. That was part of it. But it was also a stretch. I didn't know how I was going to get there.
Yeah.
And by saying that to a certain group of people, like that's why I like having, what's a group that you could be bold with?
Yeah.
You could call your shot.
Yeah.
And then they support you.
Gotcha.
That's a big piece.
So then the second part, you said test it, which I think is a really big deal because a lot of times we skip over that. We have an idea and we just start, blasting forward with it.
Yeah, so like, for example, we had an advanced reader group for Money Unmasked. And we had this chapter called The Cycle of Creation. Mm-hmm. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to keep that chapter because we were going from 88,000 words trying to get it to around 40,000.
Wow.
Because, at first when I wrote my first book, the longer book was to have a bigger spine, so it was easier to see in the bookstore.
Gotcha. But it was beneficial.
But it wasn't. That's not about the reader. Yeah. So we're like, how do we make this about the reader? And so AJ Harper and I are like, okay, what doesn't belong? That's the whole Michelangelo story, just chipping away.
Yeah.
For the David, and so it's like, what are we going to chip away? Cycle of Creation was on the chopping block potentially. But then we get this advanced reader group, and it was the most popular chapter. Oh. It's a chapter that because I hadn't written about it anywhere else. It was something I'd been using in my own life for a while.
Yeah.
That was really helpful feedback.
Gotcha.
Is getting that feedback, getting that test. Sometimes we'll test different titles for these videos and see what the response is so that we can see what's going on versus just speculate.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And then next you had co-create. Why is that important?
So co-create takes it from just being an idea to or having an emotion sabotage to a commitment.
Okay.
Right? You've now got someone to support and inspire you, someone to help you move it forward. So when I have this idea after telling some jokes on stage in a speech, I want to do comedy, I call someone that I feel will be a co-creator, right? Because now I'm scheduling a specific time and we're talking it through and there's a sounding board. And so it's the busyness of life doesn't just wipe it out. I feel like there's time and space when you have someone that you're meeting with versus a task list.
Yeah, because you have to form that time because you're going to physically meet with them.
Right. And for me, like when writing, it's like nice to have someone to like, hey man, I'm writing this, like I want to talk about it. And then they talk about it and that co-creation there's a certain chemistry there that can really help it, come about. Friday night, I was talking to, Jeff, one of my partners, about what we're doing with this insurance agency. And man, that co-creation process just got bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And then after the 3 hours, I called Matt, our other partner. I called my wife. I was like, this is amazing. Like that co-creation was part of the expansion. It's part of the vision. It's just part of making it a reality.
Yeah. Any guidelines towards who to co-create with and who not?
You don't want to co-create with someone who is a complete pessimist.
Oh, okay.
You want to co-create with someone that, might be manipulative or not have your best interest at heart.
Yeah, someone who's jealous.
Someone that might try to put you down unnecessarily to think that they're going to build themselves up. Someone that's flaky, someone that can't keep their commitments. I mean, there's a number of things you want to look for here. There's just co-creators that, like AJ Harper and Stephen Palmer have been the two best co-creators when it comes to my books, because AJ helped me find my voice and she knows what to do here. Stephen is so good at the editing and how quick he can do it. It's like, man, when I have those two, I just know everything's going to be better.
Yeah.
I just know it's going to be faster. I know it's going to be more effective. I know they're going to challenge me positively. They're not afraid to call me out and give me the really, instrumental feedback, but they're also going to be very helpful and celebrate the wins with me. So that's some examples.
Yeah. So next you said escapism.
Yeah. You got to eliminate the escapism.
Okay.
Got to eliminate that, because escapism can be as simple as getting caught up in like a movie or TV series character rather than reality, because when we don't want to deal with our issues, it's easy to numb out or turn to the news or social media. But then we never know the price of a real relationship, especially the relationship with ourselves. So escapism can be, I need to have a difficult conversation with someone. Then I think of all these reasons that I can't do it, or why it's not good timing, or I'm too busy. And so I want to sweep it under the rug. But anything we sweep under the rug creates more pain and takes more time in the long run. So escapism is just when we're immature about something, or we're not sure how to approach it, or it's these excuses or patterns that we have kind of sabotaged our success quite too often because of whatever belief systems we may have formed. It's really about taking responsibility. It's really about raising the stakes. It's about creating the structure that help you to move forward with it, because an escapism for me might be, okay, I have this really big idea. And then I'm like, man, that sounds exhausting. I'm going to need more rest, and it's like, I could see that little pattern, because it's like, I'm starting to suffer the thing before it actually happens. I call that carrying the future or suffering the future, because it's new, because it's big, because it's uncertain. Escapisms are just those things that sabotage our success. And so people could look at it, for some it's vices that are uncontrollable. For some, it might be addictions that they can't handle. For others, it just might be silly things that they always say have to be handled before they can do the next thing. It could be, it seem like OCD things sometimes. Sometimes it could just be, that they, again, go to these like same conversations they've had over and over and get in the loops of like problems, or where they were victimized, or why things can't work, or what's wrong in the world, or get caught in politics. Like that's escapisms.
Gotcha.
I'm not saying that those things aren't sometimes important. It's just that they come up too frequently as a way to opt out from the difficulty of creating something big, creating something new, doing something different. Like escapisms are kind of the container that hold us back.
Gotcha. And then next you said time and space.
Yeah. So the time and space is really just about delegation, right? It's about, we want to delegate roles, because if we delegate a task, it's like a boomerang that comes back around asking what to do next, where a role removes the micromanagement. So how do we create more time and space in our calendar? Well, as we build momentum, as we have personal or professional profitability, it's really about delegating and then keeping that time and space open in our calendar so that we can actually do the things that are required for whatever we're up to.
Yeah.
Whatever the new skill development might be, whatever the things that are actually going to bring the ideas forward. Like there's got to be time and space, because if it gets on a task list, it's probably just going to be consumed by other things.
Yeah.
There's just going to get wiped out. If we don't have this on the schedule, when are we going to get up here?
Yeah.
You're busy, I'm busy. So it's being very intentional. It's about delegation. It's those kind of things.
Well, and especially because we're talking about intellectual property. So it's, if you're burdened with so many other tasks and the accounting or whatever, all of a sudden that disappears, right?
Right. And I'm always like, hey, progress over perfection, carve out some time. Like when are you going to be most in flow? Like, I rewrote Killing Sacred Cows and What Would the Rockefellers Do at the end of 2023. It just meant I got up super early, sat at the table until the sun rose, and just wrote away. It was like, it was great. It was like I carved out that time. Now, one time I was here and I forgot to write a blog, and I was going to write it, and it was like late. And dude, I just double vision, tired, like didn't have the flow. It's like nighttime's not the time for me.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of find that time and space, and you have to ask, if I'm going to do something new, what am I going to let go of that I was doing previously?
Yeah.
So let go to grow.
That's interesting. Do people always have to let go of something?
They have to do less of something.
Gotcha.
If they don't, what they're going to find is they might have their health suffer.
Yeah.
They might have their family suffer. They might have fun suffer.
Gotcha.
They might get overwhelmed, exhausted, and then, burn out.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's got to be something that you're kind of saying, okay, if I'm going to do this new thing, what can I offload to have that space?
Mm. And then last, you had collaboration.
Yeah. And collaboration is different than co-creation.
Yeah.
Co-creation is one. Collaboration is a team.
Okay. Anything
that you want to do that might be world-class. Like if we're talking about a book specifically, you've got editors, but you've even got multiple editors. You got the kind of substantive editor, you've got the copy editor, you've got the proofreader, you've got the book designer.
Yeah.
You've got the marketing aspects. Like you got choices of hardcover versus soft cover versus even recording an audiobook, and you might need a sound engineer for that. There's a lot of moving pieces and different pieces when it comes to all of this. Yeah. And so having a team can help you to focus on what you do best. And if you don't have a team, it's a lot of work that can be overwhelming, consuming, and draining.
Yeah. And again, can sometimes crush the whole intellectual property part, because it's your intellect, right?
Right.
It's your ideas. Okay. Any final tips that you'd give to someone about intellectual property or the power of that $1 million idea that's hiding inside?
What have you already done well? What is it that you see someone else doesn't? What is it that you could share that would inspire, uplift? And it might be a big idea. It might just be nuts and bolts that show people exactly how to do something, the how to. Might be that you have just great stories and examples and give people, an opportunity to see that they're not alone, or, give them hope. Like if you've got some of these aspects in these ingredients, like I wasn't a writer, I would now tell people I am a writer, because I just developed a way of doing it that I'm very comfortable with and that I enjoy doing, but I was afraid of that initially.
Yeah.
And so now I've got 10 books, and, there's 4 of those that are selling really well and still going years into the process, and have another one in the works, because it's just part of who I am and what I want to do and how I want to help people. So if you've got a great business and you want to help people in the industry have a better business, that might be part of the idea. If you've got something that you see that other people don't see, that you can help them have a mindset shift and a paradigm shift that would change the game for them, that might be another piece. If you just simply want to, share, for some people, they just want to share who they are. And that's great too. Like find out what it is for you and what that would mean for a reader. I always look at it like, who am I writing this to? My play is more written to me than anyone else, because it's an instruction manual for life where, that was based on Money Unmasked, which I was really writing to my oldest son in a big way. But I think it's very universal, because everybody has a money persona. Everybody can benefit from the cycle of creation. And so is there something that you could share that would really improve someone else's life that, and the hard thing is sometimes we discount the things that are most valuable because it come more naturally to us or we've already figured it out. But when you start getting in conversations with other people, you might see, wait, I see the world differently, or I've got a solution that would really alleviate a lot of pain, help people avoid a lot of mistakes, and ultimately just have a better life. If you've got that, maybe a book is the way. Maybe you start with a podcast. I mean, you got to find out what your IP DNA is. Not everybody has the same DNA. Some people love to speak, others would hate that. Some people love to write, others would hate that. Some people like to interview, others like, you've got to figure out what it is for you and that you could stick to. Don't do it just because everybody else is doing it. Don't do it just because it's popular. Don't do it just because you probably won't have the zeal and energy to see it through. Ask, could you be consistent enough to make it happen? And could you do it in a way that would feel world class? That's the thing, you know? We don't need something that's sloppily done, but I am going to tell you, be willing to start sloppy and improve. Yeah. Because, you know, you can have that collaboration get you where you want to go if you don't have every answer.
Yeah.